Hello, welcome to PJ and Dunkley. I'm the horse racing correspondent Anthony Dunkley, once again joined by my good friend Paul Jacobs. How's it going, Paul?
Good, looking forward to this weekend.
There's a fantastic card on this weekend, Paul. I don't know if you've heard, it's the Hennessy weekend. There's also the Fighting Fifth up at Newcastle. We're going to dive straight into the Hennessy Gold Cup, or are we? First, we're going to do reflections in running because we're switching it up a bit. Paul, you've got a couple of horses you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk about Red Dragon first of all, who ran at Lingfield on Wednesday of this week, and actually put him up for the tip of the day, and he was back from 8 to 1 into 4 to 1, and I was on at 9.2, and I was thinking, this is very nice indeed. And as they swung into the home straight, a young jockey on board, Chris Meehan, who was claiming £5, and I backed him, by the way, on the back of a run at Kempton time before where the race didn't go his way and it was slowly run. And I was saying, Chris, young Chris, get off the fence, and he wouldn't. He went up the fence behind the pace setter, who dropped back and literally fell on top of him, and Chris had to stop riding and rein him back, and that was the end of it. And to be fair to Chris, he just let the horse come home in his own time, and he finished 13th of 13. His strike rate isn't great, but I'm not speaking from my pocket, I'm almost certain he would have won. And it's just so annoying when something like that happens. It's a sort of a cross between a jockey basically not thinking or not carrying out the instructions from the trainer, and all bad luck as well. And as a punter, when these things happen to you, you just have to take them on the chin. So Red Dragon, between a mile and a quarter, a mile and a half, at Kempton or Lingfield, will win a race in the coming month or two through the winter season. The fixed brush hurdle at Haydock interested me from last week. I thought Upswing travelled like much the best horse in the race for 2.5 miles. And then for some reason, when push came to shove under Richie McClellan, he found absolutely nothing. And I'm just thinking whether there's something wrong with the horse, or maybe he just raced a wee bit freely through the first couple of miles of the race, and it told him when he was let down. I thought it looked like it rode like a really good race this year, and it has done in the past, and it's always been form to follow. But I'll still be interested in Upswing while there's plenty of give in the ground. And the third horse, now this is my biggest eye-catcher of the week, Dunkers. I was at Ascot on Friday when Puffin Billy won over 2.5 miles in novice chase. He was really impressive. But I think further down the line on better ground, the second home Kalila Key will reverse the form with him. I think he's a more robust individual. He didn't like the really soft ground. He made a mistake 4 out, which knocked him back. He was very, very big in the paddock as well, so it brought him on. Then he ran on strongly in the closing stages to finish the distance second. I know that his trainer Charlie Longston feels he's a horse that wants good ground, good to soft at worst. And he'll take time, I think, really to get the hang of jumping fences. He's a big athletic type, but he's a horse I want to keep an eye on. Remember, he ran really well last season in the Neptune. I think he's a very, very nice individual for fences this season. And I think you'll only see the best of him once we get to the spring festivals. Kalila Key is long-term as a horse to follow.
Well, there's 3 horses to follow. If you want 6 more, then Paul and I have done a video of horses to follow for the jump season after 2 months of hindsight. So watch that straight after you watch this. Right, we're going to move on to the Hennessy Gold Cup. It's a handicap, it's a grade 3, it's at 3 o'clock at Newbury. Paul, I know on your anti-post piece on the site you picked Jackadam. You tipped him up at 10s. Could you just very briefly, for anyone who didn't see the piece, say why you picked him?
Yeah, I picked him at 10s, and lucky enough, the last sort of 72 hours he's been backed, and I think he's been backed by connections as well. He's now as low as 7 to 2, as high as 4 to 1. I backed him because he's rated 142 on the back of falling, of course, at the Cheltenham Festival last year, but very impressive in 2 of his other runs over fences last season. It was a soft fall at Cheltenham. I think he's a very sound jumper. And then I know a lot of the time you should almost, if you hear remarks from trainers, you should almost cast them to one side. But when Willie Mullins says openly in a couple of interviews he thinks he could be near Gold Cup class, if he's within £10 of Gold Cup class, he's got to go very close off a mark of 142, and you think a Gold Cup horse is 160 plus minimum, which means he could have, in effect, £18 in hand, which is ridiculous. The slight negative is he's a 5-year-old. 5-year-olds have never won the race. He's inexperienced in a big field, but he has enough in hand here to run a huge, huge race. My other selection was Fingal Bay. I thought he was an each way bet to nothing, also at 10 to 1. He's now 8. He's not very well handicapped, but he's unexposed over fences, having, of course, had problems a year and a half ago and came back and won the Potemps Hurdle final. And because we have a really, really good betting profile on this race already, and I've traded in 50% of my bets on those 2 horses, I've also picked up on the Rev, who was a very, very good winner at Sandown last time. This is a big step up in classroom. He's a big horse, he's 17.2 hands. There's loads more to come from him mentally and physically, right? And Lucy Wadden will be absolutely delighted that the weather forecast from Thursday through to Saturday is dry, so it's not going to be a really testing surface. It won't be as fast as last year, but it won't be a testing surface. And I've also put Merry King up as another backup bet at 16 to 1, because I think he can hit the frame off his very lightweight. So all in all, basically, we're in a very good position anti-post with the two horses we put up originally, which means we have room to manoeuvre to add an extra 2 outsiders at big prices.
Well, it's a race that has a lot of strength and depth. I know we've talked about this a lot in the office. If my arm was twisted, you know, Paul, I don't really like these types of races. I like to watch them as the racing purist. But Fingal Bay, for me, I'm a big fan of the horse. Tipped him up at the Cheltenham Festival. Very, very happy to tip him up for any other race after. He's done me proud. Yeah. The Fighting Fifth, it's a Grade 1 at 205 at Newcastle on Saturday. Irving is a very strong favourite after the declarations today. Only 6 runners. Aurora Destraval is 7 to 2, and Arctic Fire, the Irish raider from Willie Mullins' yard, is 3 to 1. I'm going to go straight into it, Paul. I think Irving is a place lay for me. I think if his fall has scarred him for racing, which we don't like to see, but I don't think, personally, he'll either win this or he won't. Or he won't even finish in the first 2. There's only 2 places. Arctic Fire doesn't really look like a Grade 1 horse, but as he showed in the WKD hurdle, he can run well in Grade 2 company. This kind of looks like a Grade 2 to me.
It looks like a Grade 1.5 stroke 2, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just has no strength and depth. I mean, Sea Lord doesn't... He's 12 to 1, but I wouldn't say the race would have to fall apart for him to play a big hand in the finish. Swaledale Lad the same, and if Volcanic Jack wins, then I think we're doing the next video naked.
I mean, I don't think that Irving was a certainty to have won before he came down at Wincanton, and he was slowly getting there, but for me he was, I suppose the term you would use is workmanlike more than anything else, and he may well have got the run and pulled away. The 2 things you can say is Newcastle will suit him better, being a stiffer track, and the soft ground will certainly suit him as well. If I was to have a bet, it would only be around about 6 to 4, but I'm never going to get that. And 4 to 5 means it's a no bet for me.
Exactly. He very well might win. I'm definitely accepting that, but I think if his place price is about 1.3, 1.25, I'd be very interested in laying him just on the off chance that he doesn't make any impact in a race. Right, those are the 2 big races. Join us next week when we'll be catching you up on more of our reflections of this weekend, and we'll maybe have a few more horses for you to follow. See you then.